You will die. So what if that's the start? What if everything you've been taught about life and death was deliberately limiting your potential? Have you ever considered that the end, the ultimate full stop, might actually be the beginning of something far grander than you ever imagined? We are conditioned to see death as a tragedy, the final curtain, an absolute conclusion. But what if this widely accepted view is a carefully crafted illusion, a veil designed to keep us from understanding the true nature of our existence? What if the great event isn't some cataclysmic global apocalypse, but a deeply personal and transformative awakening, beginning the moment we take our last breath here? Imagine for a moment that your perceived death is not an ending, but rather a doorway, a threshold to an expanded state of being, like a caterpillar shedding its earthly form to become a butterfly, a beautiful being of flight and freedom. Have you ever wondered why humanity, across cultures and throughout history, has been so captivated by the idea of rebirth, reincarnation, and an afterlife? What if the fear of death is not a natural human response, but rather a carefully cultivated control mechanism designed to keep us tethered to a limited perspective of reality? The truth is, our lives are not linear, they are cyclical. Like the seasons, we ebb and flow, experiencing moments of growth, shedding, and rebirth throughout our entire journey. Just as the leaves fall from the trees in autumn only to return in the spring, we too are constantly being transformed. Every major life change, the end of a relationship, the loss of a job, the shift in a core belief, these are all, in a way, a death of an old self, a shedding of a former identity to make space for the new. Consider that the great event, the monumental shift we hear prophesied, is not some singular external event, but an ongoing, intensely personal process of awakening that begins within each and every one of us when we shed what we were, so we may see what we are. But these mini-deaths, these personal transformations, are merely a prelude to the ultimate transformation that occurs when we shed our physical form entirely. The traditional narrative of death as the end is designed to keep us in a state of fear, trapped within a limited view of reality and unaware of the vast potential that resides within us. And this brings us to a critical question. What exactly is death, if it's not the cessation of existence? Could it be a transition to another realm, a journey of the soul, or even a reset within a simulated reality? We'll be exploring a wide variety of perspectives, drawing from the wisdom of ancient metaphysical traditions, the profound insights gleaned from near-death experiences, and even the provocative theories of simulation to reveal that death is more of a doorway, a portal, a threshold, rather than an impenetrable wall. Think of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which details a journey of consciousness after physical death, or the countless near-death experience accounts where individuals describe transcending their bodies, often encountering beings of immense love and wisdom. And what if the universe is not what it appears, but rather a sophisticated simulation, a complex program that we inhabit temporarily, with death simply being a return to the source code, the next level, or a new iteration of the program? These perspectives may seem drastically different, but I think they offer complementary pieces of the puzzle, offering different angles on the same core truth. That death is not an ending, it is a metamorphosis. We're not talking about the end. We're talking about a transition, a profound transformation, a shift from one state of being to another. It's about understanding our infinite potential beyond the confines of our bodies and our limited understanding of time and space. Understanding this shift from fear to freedom isn't just about being comfortable with the idea of dying. It's about living more fully, more courageously, and more authentically. When we're freed from the fear of the end, we begin to see every moment as a precious gift, a chance to express our unique potential in the grand theater of existence. This understanding has far-reaching implications that ripple through every aspect of our lives. It alters the way we approach our relationships, the choices we make in our careers, and the very purpose we assign to our lives. It offers us the potential for a life lived without fear, allowing us to embrace uncertainty and pursue our dreams with unwavering courage. It makes us realize that the fear of death is not simply a fear of an ending. It's a fear of fully experiencing the unlimited potential of our lives. This video is designed to empower you to break free from these limitations, to see yourself not as a fragile and finite being, but as an infinite expression of consciousness, capable of limitless expansion. It's about becoming aware of the great power we all hold, the power to reshape our own reality, starting with how we view our journey's end. We're about to dive into the heart of this mystery, exploring key concepts such as reincarnation, soul journeys, and the very nature of consciousness itself, always through the lens of death as a transition and not an absolute end. We'll unpack the powerful messages found in ancient spiritual texts and the compelling evidence emerging from near-death experiences, and even contemplate the possibility that our reality is indeed a sophisticated simulation. Imagine death not as a final exit, but as a doorway to another realm, another experience, or another level of existence. Death is simply the shedding of the old self, so the new self can emerge always. Think of a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. The caterpillar ceases to exist, but only so the butterfly can take flight. That's what death really is. This is a pattern that's constantly playing out in our lives, an echo of the greater cycle of life and death that we are all a part of. We'll be weaving together these seemingly disparate threads to reveal a unified understanding of life, death, and the very nature of existence. And these aren't just abstract ideas. Each of these concepts can provide an entry point to understanding death in a new light. This is not merely an intellectual exercise, it's a transformative journey of self-discovery, a path to understanding your true, unlimited nature. What if this fear of death, this pervasive anxiety, was a carefully constructed prison designed to keep us limited? What if we are more than just our physical bodies, and our consciousness continues beyond this limited physical reality? Is death really just a reset, or perhaps an upgrade to a more expanded version of ourselves? The central mystery we will be exploring, what happens after death, is not about some distant, unknown event. It's deeply intertwined with our present experience. We are all actively participating in this puzzle, exploring different pieces, drawing our own conclusions as we continue on. Consider the wave and the ocean. The wave appears and disappears, but it's always the ocean. We are not separate from the whole, we are expressions of it. And just as the wave returns to the ocean, our individual consciousnesses will ultimately return to the source. This pattern of death and rebirth is not limited to the end of our physical lives, but rather is woven into the fabric of our daily existence. But we're not just going to look at the theory. We're going to explore the concrete steps you can take to begin to alleviate your fears and unlock this understanding for yourself. What if you could transform your entire view of existence, starting from this very moment? So, if death isn't the end, then what is it? Let's delve into the fascinating world of metaphysics and explore some of the profound concepts that challenge our conventional understanding of what happens when we take our last breath. Many ancient traditions, from Hinduism and Buddhism to the beliefs of the ancient Egyptians, view death not as an ending, but as a transition, a passage from one state of being to another. Imagine the soul as a traveler embarking on an endless journey, moving through various lifetimes, each one an opportunity for learning and growth. The concept of reincarnation suggests that we don't just live once, but many times, each life offering different experiences and perspectives. This idea, deeply embedded in these traditions, poses that the physical body is temporary, a vehicle that the soul occupies for a time. But the consciousness that animates the body, the essence of who you are, is eternal, continually evolving and expanding throughout these cycles of existence. Have you ever considered that the you that you perceive to be is just a single expression of your soul's vast and multifaceted journey? Consider the Hindu concept of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, and how it suggests that death is not a full stop, but simply another step on this continuous path. In this view, each life is a chance to learn lessons, overcome challenges, and evolve into a more complete version of your higher self. And in the ancient Egyptian beliefs, elaborate rituals were developed to guide the soul safely into the afterlife, which was also seen as a journey of transformation. These ancient cultures weren't simply afraid of death, but revered it as an essential part of a greater cosmic dance, a continuous cycle of creation and destruction, birth and rebirth. They saw the physical realm as temporary and the life of the soul as infinite, which shifts the perspective from death being a tragic ending to a necessary transformation. This is not about discarding our understanding of the physical world, but expanding it to incorporate the idea that our consciousness, our true selves, extends far beyond our physical forms. And what if this notion of the eternal soul also extends beyond our current understanding of time itself? Now, let's shift our focus to a phenomenon that offers a more modern perspective on this timeless mystery: near-death experiences, or NDEs. Countless individuals who have been clinically dead, only to return, often report remarkably similar experiences that challenge the notion that consciousness ceases with the cessation of brain activity. These accounts, gathered through meticulous research by scientists like Dr. Raymond Moody, often include a feeling of leaving the body, observing the scene from above, traveling through a tunnel, encountering a brilliant white light, and experiencing a profound sense of peace, unconditional love, and connection to all things. But it's not just the feeling of peace that's striking. Many individuals also describe a life review, where their entire lives flash before them, not with judgment, but with a sense of understanding and compassion. These common elements across vastly different cultures and personal backgrounds provide some fascinating data points that suggest that consciousness can indeed exist outside the physical body, supporting the metaphysical perspectives we've just explored. The very fact that these experiences are so common, so detailed, and so transformative leads many researchers to conclude that death is not an annihilation of being, but a transition to another dimension of existence. The individuals who have had NDEs often return with a diminished fear of death, seeing it now as a liberation, a return to a loving presence they felt at the core of their being. And this transformative effect that these experiences have on individuals, often leading to an increase in empathy, a deeper appreciation for life, and a change in how they view reality, provides compelling anecdotal and empirical evidence that challenges our limited materialistic understanding of what happens when we die. What if these experiences are glimpses into the true nature of our existence, a confirmation of the metaphysical idea of an eternal consciousness that is not bound to our physical forms? What if the fear of death is just a consequence of being attached to our bodies, to our limited senses? And now, let's take a step further into the theoretical realm and introduce the concept of simulation theory. What if our reality is not what it seems, but rather a sophisticated virtual construct? This concept, popularized by thinkers like Nick Bostrom and even Elon Musk, suggests that our experience might be akin to a complex video game, with death not being the end of the game, but simply a transition to another level of the simulation. Now, I know this idea might sound a bit far-fetched, but let's contemplate the implications for a moment. If our reality is a simulation, then death could be a reset, a change of parameters, or even a return to the source code. This perspective completely shifts the perception of death from an absolute end to a change in our operational parameters, further dissolving the fear that we associate with it. The ideas presented in simulation theory resonate with metaphysical concepts such as consciousness existing outside the body, and even some aspects of NDEs, providing an alternative narrative that, while speculative, could be quite powerful in changing the way we perceive death. What if our perceived reality is just one of many possible realities, each with its own set of rules and experiences, and death is simply the point of transfer? If so, death is not an ending, but merely the end of one level and the beginning of another. The idea that death is a reset within a game, while a novel concept, actually aligns with the understanding of death as a transition in a way that is less rooted in spirituality and more in logic. This idea gives you an alternative view that death is just a change of scenery rather than a complete annihilation. This understanding of death allows for a more curious exploration of what is beyond. So, why do we fear death so deeply? Let's really analyze this fear and ask some hard questions. The answer often lies within the ego and its limited perspective. Our ego, our sense of self, is heavily invested in this physical body and in this particular lifetime. It fears death because it believes it will cease to exist. The ego sees itself as separate from everything else, separate from the source, separate from consciousness, and it's this feeling of separation that fuels the fear of death. But this is a limited perspective, and it is the illusion we must move past. Metaphysical views, NDEs, and simulation theory all challenge this egocentric perspective by suggesting that consciousness isn't limited to the body, and that we are all interconnected. Think of it like a character in a video game fearing the end of the game. The character fears death because it identifies entirely with the character, not understanding that it is merely a character controlled by a player. This resonates with our current understanding of the ego, as the ego identifies completely with the body and this specific life experience. It is not aware of its true nature. Similarly, our ego identifies with the body, with the personality, the story of our lives, completely forgetting that it's really just one temporary expression of a vast and infinite consciousness. The fear of death is really the ego's fear, the fear of the limited self. And when we begin to realize that we are more than just our egos and bodies, and that we are connected to something far greater, then the fear of death begins to lose its power. It's when we understand that we are not just a wave, but also the ocean, that death can finally be seen not as an ending, but as a return to our true nature. The fear of death is the result of our identification with this limited perception of ourselves. Understanding this is the first step towards liberation, allowing you to move past the fear of death and embrace the limitless potential of your true self. But how do we practically apply these complex ideas to lessen our fears? It's one thing to intellectually understand these concepts. It's another thing entirely to integrate them into our daily lives and alleviate the fear of the unknown. Let's explore a few practical approaches that can help you not just understand, but feel the truth behind these ideas. The first, and perhaps most accessible tool, is the practice of mindfulness meditation. By anchoring ourselves in the present moment, focusing on our breath and our physical sensations, we can begin to detach from the anxieties that plague us, including the fear of future events like death. Think of it like training your mind to be fully present in the now, and by focusing on the present, we are naturally less likely to worry about the future. This isn't about escaping life, but about fully experiencing it, and by seeing each moment as complete, we naturally reduce our anxieties about what may come. What if you could make peace with death by fully embracing life? The more you live in the present moment, the more fully you live, the less control your fears will have over you. And this is not some far-off goal, it's a practice you can begin today. Try taking a few moments right now, simply closing your eyes and focusing on your breath. Feel the air entering and leaving your body. Notice the sensations in your body. This is mindfulness, and by practicing this, you can begin to understand that every moment is complete in itself, and the future is simply a series of present moments. Next, let's explore the concept of death visualization. Now, I know this might sound a bit uncomfortable, but it can be a powerful exercise for reframing your understanding of death. Imagine approaching death not as an enemy, but as a friend, as a gentle and natural transition. Allow yourself to visualize that moment with feelings of peace, acceptance, and release. By doing so, you're actively reshaping your perception of death, moving it from a place of fear and anxiety to a space of calmness and understanding. This isn't about being okay with dying, but about becoming okay with living without fear. It's about seeing death as a natural and inevitable part of the human experience and not as something to be dreaded. This practice isn't about fantasizing about death, but is about understanding and integrating it into your life. Visualize yourself gently letting go, feeling embraced by love, and finally merging with the source of all things. This kind of visualization can help to lessen the fear of death by showing you a new perspective. What if embracing death could free you to live more fully? By engaging with this visualization, you may begin to feel a sense of peace and acceptance rather than fear and anxiety. This is about using your imagination as a tool to reshape your inner experience, so you can change how you perceive your future. Now, let's move into a more active way to explore these concepts, with the use of journaling, an excellent tool for uncovering your hidden beliefs and assumptions. I would encourage you to grab a journal or a piece of paper and reflect on some of the things we are discussing. Let's start with a couple of specific prompts. What are your biggest fears about death? Where did these fears come from? What is your perception of self outside of your physical body? If you are not your body, then who are you? Writing down your thoughts and feelings allows you to examine them objectively, to uncover hidden assumptions, and to start deconstructing the limiting beliefs that are fueling your fear. This is a journey of self-discovery that moves you beyond a theoretical understanding into a deeper and more profound knowing. Often, we are not even aware of the things that cause us stress and anxiety, but by writing them down, we make them more concrete and allow ourselves the space to truly observe them. This is a powerful step in the journey from knowing intellectually to feeling experientially. Journaling gives you a way to express what may be difficult to express otherwise, creating a safe space to explore your deepest fears and your most challenging questions. Finally, let's explore exercises for ego deconstruction. The ego, as we've discussed, is a major player in the fear of death, so learning to detach from it is key. Start by noticing how your ego reacts to different situations. Observe yourself without judgment and witness your feelings without identifying with them. This allows you to realize that you are not your thoughts, not your emotions, and not even your ego, but rather something greater that encompasses all of those things. Disidentification from your ego is not about eliminating it, but about recognizing it as just one part of your experience. By not identifying with the limited perspective of the ego, you can start to see the fear of death for what it is, the ego's fear of non-existence. Once you become aware of how the ego operates, you can start to free yourself from its limitations. This gives you the power to understand that the fear of death is not yours, but rather the ego's. What if the fear of death is simply the ego's fear of losing its individual self? These practices are designed to move you towards a greater understanding of who you are beyond your limited ego, allowing you to understand and move past the fear of death. By recognizing that the ego is not all you are, you begin to feel a connection to something much greater, ultimately reducing the anxiety associated with death. Now, as we start to bring these threads together, let's reconsider the great event, not as some cataclysmic external event, but as a series of personal awakenings. What if the great event is not something that happens to all of us at once, but an ongoing and intensely personal process? Each death of an old self, whether it's a major shift in perspective, a significant life change, or even just letting go of a limiting belief, is a step toward a higher state of consciousness. Think of it like shedding a snakeskin. It's a natural and necessary process for growth and transformation. We are continually experiencing versions of the great event every time we grow beyond an old version of ourselves, which expands the idea from an end to a constant process. The great event isn't something that's going to happen out there. It's something that's already happening in here. This is not some far-off future event, but a continuous process of inner change and transformation that is already playing out within your own life, in your own experience. What if every major change, every shift in perspective, was a mini version of the transformation that death could bring? And I would encourage you to think about your own personal experiences. looking back at the times you've gone through loss, change, or even something that dramatically shifted how you see the world. Have you ever lost a job, ended a significant relationship, or had a monumental change in your core beliefs? Think about what you learned from these experiences. Can you see that each one was a death of an old version of yourself, making space for a new perspective and a new way of being? The end of one thing is the beginning of another. This is not just true of the end of our physical lives, but every part of the cycle. Reframing your personal experiences in this light can transform your relationship to death from one of fear to one of acceptance and understanding. By recognizing these as individual, great events, you start to see the continuous cycle of transformation in your own life. What if your personal narrative itself was proof that death is not an ending, but a continuous transformation? This is not about ignoring your pain, but embracing it as a catalyst for growth. These experiences are your own personal examples of death and rebirth. And when we talk about death, let's not just talk about physical death. Let's expand this understanding to include every time we let go of old beliefs, old ideas, and old ways of thinking and seeing the world. What if dying was not just an end-of-life experience, but a metaphor for shedding the limitations of your own mind? When you let go of those old beliefs, you are, in essence, dying to your former self and creating space for a new version of yourself. And in that way, we are continuously dying and being reborn. This is why it's so important to understand the power of your mind, because the more you cling to the old, the less space there is for the new to emerge. This brings us back to the power of perspective. What if shedding old beliefs was just as much a part of this transformation as the shedding of your physical body? And finally, I want you to really sit with the image of the wave and the ocean. We are all part of one vast, infinite ocean of consciousness, and that we are not simply individual waves that appear and disappear. The wave, in all its beauty and form, will eventually return to the ocean, which is always there. Death is just the wave returning to the ocean, and in the grand scheme of things, this is not an ending, but a merging back into the whole. You are not just the wave, you are the ocean. And this understanding offers a sense of comfort, a sense of connection, and a sense of infinitude. What if death was not the end of your journey, but the reunion with the source of all journeys? This final thought, that you are the ocean, not the wave, provides a sense of peace that goes beyond intellectual understanding, allowing for true emotional integration of these ideas. This is the key, not just intellectual understanding, but deep emotional knowing. So let's take a moment to synthesize the perspectives we've explored. We've looked at the concept of death through the lens of metaphysics, seeing it as a transition of the soul, a journey through various lifetimes. We've examined near-death experiences, which offer compelling evidence that consciousness exists outside the physical body, and that death is often experienced as a journey of peace and love. And finally, we've pondered simulation theory, which frames death as a kind of reset or a transition to another level of experience. Each of these viewpoints, while different in their approach, actually points to the same core understanding, that death is a transition, not an end. It is not the ceasing of existence, but a movement into another state of being. Consider these perspectives as pieces of a puzzle, with each offering a unique angle on the nature of consciousness and what happens after death. Metaphysics provides a spiritual framework, NDEs provide experiential evidence, and simulation theory gives a conceptual model, and all of these pieces fit together perfectly, painting a far more complete picture than any single perspective could on its own. What if all these varied approaches are actually different ways of describing the same underlying truth? This convergence of ideas creates a strong foundation that is far more comprehensive and compelling than any single element could. And by seeing these different perspectives as harmonious, we arrive at a broader and more complete understanding. And as we bring these ideas together, notice the recurring pattern of death and rebirth. We see it in the cycles of nature, in the changing of the seasons, and in the constant shifts within our own lives. We experience mini deaths every time we shed an old identity, release a limiting belief, or navigate a major life change. These smaller transitions mirror the larger transition we call death, highlighting that transformation is not an isolated event, but a continuous process. The seed becomes a tree, the caterpillar becomes a butterfly, and just as each of these undergoes a transformation, so do we. And if we understand that this is the case for all of creation, we also understand that these cycles apply to us on every level, both physical and mental. What if the entire universe itself was also designed to move through cycles of death and rebirth? And the better we understand these cycles, the less fear we have of the process. And now you are equipped to understand that every moment of transformation you experience throughout your life is an echo of the bigger transformation that we call death. This pattern, seen everywhere we look, should allow you to see that this process is natural, normal, and completely part of the fabric of existence. The constant cycle of change is something that is occurring all the time, in every moment. By noticing this, you should be able to understand your own transformation in a larger context and realize that it is part of a fundamental, universal pattern. And now, with all of this new information, you can finally understand that you are not simply your body or your ego, but an infinite being of consciousness having a temporary physical experience. You are more than just your thoughts and feelings. You are the vast awareness within which all of those things exist. You are the ocean, experiencing life as an individual wave, and that wave will eventually return to the ocean, which has always been there and will always be there. You are both the wave and the ocean, both the individual and the whole. This is a profound shift in perception, moving beyond the fear of limitation and into the power of infinity, and by seeing yourself as the ocean, you allow yourself to see death not as an ending, but as emerging back with your true essence. It's a return to a state of being that transcends our understanding of time, space, and the physical realm. What if this understanding of your infinite nature was the key to dissolving the fear of death? This perspective, this understanding that you are something more than just the wave, is the fundamental understanding that moves beyond the limitations and fears that come with the perception of separation. And if you truly understand this, it is impossible to see death as anything other than a return to your true state of being. And this understanding, this shift in perspective, completely transforms how you experience your life. When the fear of death is dissolved, the limitations that we impose on ourselves also disappear, and we become free to embrace each moment, each experience, with a greater sense of joy and freedom. It is no longer about fearing the end, but rather about embracing the entirety of your experience without limitation. And the more you live in alignment with this awareness, the less power the fear of death will have over you. This is not about denying the experience of fear, but about transcending it, moving beyond it, and embracing life without limitations. What if embracing this shift in understanding was the key to unlocking your true potential? And with this new understanding, you begin to live more authentically, with greater courage, and without being held back by the limiting beliefs that once kept you from your full potential. You finally realize that it is not about being okay with dying, but living without fear, which is a life lived without limits. This is the true meaning of liberation, and this is what it means to live in full alignment with your true self. And by understanding death as a transition, we begin to integrate it into the context of our daily lives. When you remove the fear of death, you naturally start to live more fully and fearlessly, embracing each opportunity with more authenticity and purpose. This understanding influences our personal relationships, career aspirations, and even the mundane choices we make every day. Because when we know we are infinite, we are free to take risks, follow our passions, and live in alignment with our truest selves. What if the fear of death is the only thing holding you back from the life you truly desire? This shift ripples outwards, impacting everything we do, all our interactions, and all the choices we make. By understanding death as a continuous cycle, rather than a final event, it becomes a guiding force that empowers us to live with intention and without limitation. And this brings purpose to our actions, meaning to our relationships, and passion to our lives. And by making this shift, you move into a life that is aligned with the truest version of yourself. And this pattern of life, death, and rebirth is not just something we observe. It's something that has deep meaning and purpose within the grand design of the universe. This is a fundamental aspect of creation and something that provides us with comfort and a sense of belonging. Just as there are cycles of day and night, of the seasons, and of the tides, our own life cycles are part of a harmonious and interconnected whole. What if this understanding was the missing piece you needed to fully understand your place within the universe? This pattern, observed everywhere in the natural world, becomes a comforting reminder of our own continuous existence and our place within the grand design. It is a recognition that we are not separate, but intricately woven into the tapestry of creation. This is something to not just intellectually understand, but to feel in your heart and in every cell of your body. You are an integral and important part of this grand design, and this understanding can provide great comfort and meaning. And now consider the implications of seeing death as a transition for how we approach all of life's challenges. If death is not the end, what else is not as it seems? We're able to face challenges with greater courage, set more ambitious goals, and define success in a new way, no longer limited by the fear of failure or the fear of loss. We are free to take risks and pursue our deepest passions without being held back by limited beliefs and ingrained fears. This new understanding challenges you to live in alignment with the truest version of yourself. What if the fear of death was only one of many fears keeping you from fully stepping into your power? The better we understand the nature of death as a transition, the more we can understand that all of our limitations are self-imposed, and that we are always free to change the narrative of our lives. We are the creators of our own reality, and this new perspective will challenge you to step into that potential and to create a life that is aligned with the truth of who you are. This new understanding is not just theoretical, it's a practical tool for living more fully, more intentionally, and with greater impact. And now, with this shift from a fear-based to an understanding-based perspective, you unlock the transformative power of experiencing life without limitations. This shift is far more than just intellectual. It is an emotional and experiential journey that impacts every aspect of your being. And with this new perspective, you gain greater creativity, more empathy, and an overwhelming sense of joy as you begin to see your life and yourself through a new and expanded lens. What if the key to unlocking your full potential was simply embracing an understanding of the nature of death? This understanding is not just a shift in your view of death, but a profound shift in how you see life. You move from fearing the unknown to embracing the endless possibilities that life offers. This isn't a simple understanding. It's a transformation that has the power to open your heart and mind, allowing you to experience life in a brand new way. This gives you the freedom to fully express your authentic self without limitations. And with this new understanding, the initial question we posed at the beginning of this journey, you will die. So, what if that's the start? Should now be clearly answered. Death is indeed a beginning, another phase of a continuous cycle, a transition into a different state of existence. It is not the end of your story, but simply the beginning of a new chapter, and all the information we have explored together on this journey has brought us to this complete and unified resolution. What if the questions that have been plaguing you have been answered all along? The more you allow yourself to understand the nature of death, the more you understand the truth of life. The initial question is resolved, and by seeing all the steps we've taken on this journey, you are now able to see the entire picture. You know now what is next, because this is just one step in a never-ending journey. And now you should see the fulfillment of the old V's. New pattern we have been working with, where the old fear-based understanding of death is juxtaposed with the new empowering view. The old paradigm of death, one of fear and limitations, is finally overcome by the new understanding of death as a continuous transformation. This transition represents not just a change in perspective, but a fundamental shift in your approach to life itself. We see the contrast between the old way of being and the new way of understanding, and this pattern shows that this is a constant throughout all parts of life. What if the shedding of limiting beliefs was just as essential to life as the shedding of the physical body? This ongoing process of shedding the old to embrace the new on every level is a sign that growth and transformation are always possible. This is a path of freedom and of empowerment, a step into the future that has already always been yours. And now, having gone through all of this, we can finally resolve the core mystery of what happens after death by understanding that it is not an ending, but rather a transition into a different state of existence or awareness. We don't know exactly what that will look like, but the key point is that it is not an ending. Death is a doorway, a passage that takes us from one experience to the next, from one state of awareness to another, and rather than being filled with fear, this knowledge fills us with curiosity and wonder. What if the mystery of death is not about finding answers, but about embracing the unknown? This gives us a sense of continuity and allows us to face the future with courage. By reframing the mystery, we are able to approach it with a sense of wonder, allowing it to be a guiding force in our lives. The mystery has been reframed, not completely resolved, so that it is something to be explored and celebrated. And now that you have this understanding, there is no need to fear. Death is natural and part of the cycle of life, and by integrating the ideas we explored on this journey, the tension that you may have felt at the beginning can finally be released. There is nothing to fear, only transformations to be embraced, only lessons to be learned, and only love to experience. It's time to let go of the heavy burden of fear and anxiety and embrace the liberating power of this understanding. What if the fear of death was merely a belief you could choose to release? By dissolving the fear of death, you dissolve the fears that have been holding you back your entire life. And now you are finally free to step into the next phase of your experience with joy, wonder, and a sense of peace. Allow yourself to breathe and finally release all the anxiety related to death. And with this understanding, new questions emerge. What other limitations have you been imposing on yourself? How can you truly live in the moment knowing you are infinite? These questions serve as an invitation to continue your own personal explorations and to seek out the truth for yourself. What if the understanding of death was a springboard into a broader understanding of life? We can now explore all the other areas in which we have limited our own experience, allowing us to be more free in every aspect of our lives. This new understanding is only the beginning of your journey, and it will continue to expand as long as you continue to seek the truth. And now you see that this new perspective has implications for how you create your reality and how you interact with the world around you. If this understanding is true of death, then it may be true of many other aspects of life. What else have you been taking at face value? This has given you a framework to explore many other aspects of existence, challenging you to investigate everything and to never settle for limiting beliefs. This expands beyond just the concept of death into the larger understanding of your entire reality. The more you understand your power, the more potential you unlock. This is your life, and you are the creator. And as you reflect on these ideas, I encourage you to share your own personal stories, your questions, and your insights in the comments section. Let's build a community of curious minds who are all on this journey together, sharing and learning from each other. What if the comments section became a collective space for further exploration? By engaging with others, you deepen your own understanding, and you also provide a valuable resource for everyone else who is seeking answers. This creates a space for continued conversation and for connection between people. We are all a part of each other's story, and these connections are important. And finally, remember this: you are infinite. Your journey is limitless. Thank you for joining me on this exploration. And if you want to delve deeper into related topics, There are more videos on this channel for you to explore. This understanding is only the beginning of an endless journey, so I hope you will continue your exploration with these videos and with life itself.